Today is Thursday, November 30th, 2022. This is a video for the St. Matthew Parish History Project. My name is Mary Komorowski. I'm here with Lizanne Eaton, and our interview subject today is CarlMicech. So thank you, Carl, for agreeing to meet with us today.
You're welcome.
So, Carol, we already started talking about your family background. You want to continue with that?
My father came from Slovakia in 1923, and his older sister and her husband sponsored him to come here. She and her family were parishioners at St. Matthew's at that time already.
1923, you said?
So then my father moved in with them, and then my father and my mother got married in 1935 in the Little Brick Church. And in 1937, I got baptized in June in the Little Brick Church. So next August, our family will have been in this parish 100 years.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
That is cool.
The sad part is I have 4 sons, and none of them live here to carry on after me. So with me, I'll be the last one of the Micech family in St. Matthew's Parish. I've been in the parish since I've been baptized, but I've left it. I've moved away, military time. I moved 2 other times, and I've always come back because this is my home in a manner of speaking. I just always been happy living in and being at St. Matthew's.
Where did you go to school?
I went to Eaton School, which was across the street from St. Matthew's, and when I don't know how they had this set up, but Father Adant was the pastor here, and on Saturdays, all the kids from St. Matthew's would go to Eaton School, and the nuns from St. John's would come and teach us catechism. And this went on up until the 50s, I believe. And today you couldn't get any kind of Catholic religion going into a school and using our facilities and that. And then when I was in high school in South Milwaukee, on Thursdays at 2 o'clock, they would let all the Catholic kids out of school, and then they could go to St. John's, St. Mary's, or St. Adalbert's for religious instruction. And the kids from St. Matthew's, we all went to St. John's for religious instructions on Thursdays. And then I don't know when they stopped that either.
Wow. So then you got married and you stayed here at this church?
No,
Oh.
I got married and moved out of the parish.
That's when you moved out. Okay.
But
Did you get married here?
no,
Okay.
I got married in Milwaukee at St. Rosa Lima's on 30th in Michigan. And St. Matthew's had quite of a large Slovak population living in Kerrville.
Oh, okay.
And then a Slovak priest would come from St. Joseph's in Cudahy once a month, and they'd have a Slovak Mass here for the Slovak-speaking people of the parish.
So when did you start getting involved at St. Matthew's?
When
Because I've heard your name so many times.
When I was 11 years old, I became an altar boy. And I was an altar boy from the age 11 till I graduated high school. And I only served Mass at the 5:45 a.m. Sunday morning Mass.
Sunday morning. Wow.
There was 3 of us. And St. Matthew's had a 5:45 Mass for the people that had to go to work or the farmers. And my father started work at 6:30, so Mass would be over 6:15, and he'd have 15 minutes to get to work.
Wow.
And
You said there were 3 of you that regularly served, or?
yes, there was me, my younger brother, and a friend of his. And we had that Mass down pat. Nobody else could serve there.
And it was Latin at the time, I
Yes,
suppose.
and I never served at any other Mass on a Sunday. It was just the 5:45.
Did anybody ever fight you to serve there?
We had a couple of kids that came, and then they sort of got discouraged.
That early? Wow. Okay.
Wow. So then, okay, so you started being involved when you were an altar server. What about as an adult?
As an adult, when I got out of the service, Father Francis Jordan was one of the first associate pastors here, and he brought the Young Christian Workers. It was an organization that was in the Milwaukee area, and it was for young single people. And then he started a chapter here at St. Matthew's, and he put me in charge of it. And I think there were 10 parishes in the Milwaukee area that participated in this. And the role of it was to observe, judge, and act as a Christian and live your life that way there.
Wow.
And the headquarters for
Never
it
heard
was
of
on Wisconsin Avenue on 13th in Wisconsin at the Cardine Center across the street from the Jesu Church. But the building is all gone now for the dorms or classes they have, the classrooms they have there.
Wow. So how many people were in this group?
We had 12 people in our group here in Oak Creek.
So Oak Creek was relatively small in population as
Yeah.
far as the church, St. Matthew's.
Are there any people that are still here today, that names that we would know that were in this group, or?
Tony Sagan was in it for a while,
Okay.
and my sister was in it.
Okay.
So what were some of the memorable events in the life of the church in your early years? Like, any sacraments or social events or activities you used to do?
The scariest one was confirmation. 13 years old and you got confirmed.
How old?
13. They used to,
13,
shortly after you made your first communion, then they'd confirm you. And now it's 16, 17, 18 years old as first confirmation. And I got stuck in the front pew, right directly in front of Archbishop Kiley, and he was supposed to ask questions of the kids. And I was scared to death because he was sitting just like you are across from me. And thankfully, he never asked me a question, but I would
Because you
have
were too
died.
close. Well, that's cool. So you said your family's been involved 100 years this next year. So what type of involvement have they been
Well,
in the
my
parish?
mother was with the group of women that took care of the church. The linens and all that, they would take altar linens, wash them, starch them, bring them back to church and that, and do light cleaning in the church itself.
Wow.
And
That would have been the Little Brick Church.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And then Father Redant, he was losing his hearing on his right ear, and he approached my father one Sunday morning and he said, "I'll point out my bedroom window to you." He says, "I know you get here 20 minutes before Mass," shortly after the ushers opened up the church. And he said, "If there isn't a light on in the rectory, come over to that window and start pounding on it because I may be sleeping on my good ear."
Oh.
That's a good one.
Oh.
How else? I know you've been involved in other ways, because I know we served on parish council together.
Yeah, I was on parish council for 8 years, from 91 to 99.
What do you remember about that time?
About the parish council?
Yeah.
Or
Anything in particular that stood out to you? Any decisions you had to make?
well, we had this here. This group of fellows decided they were going to do what St. Anne's does, build a house and then raffle it off.
Oh.
And then they decided St. Matthew's could do this. And everything at that time was a consensus vote. And they had to twist my arm to get that consensus vote out of me because I said it wouldn't work here. We didn't have the population where St. Anne's is in Milwaukee, a bigger parish and all that. And they always got enough money. And it turned out we didn't raise enough money. So then they had to just have a drawing, and they got, I don't remember how many winners they had, but they dispersed the money that way there. And as it was, shortly after that, the builder that was building this house, he got into some hot water with some somehow when he lost his business and the subdivision he was building where this house was supposed to be.
So it was a blessing in disguise that they
Yeah.
couldn't get the money, huh? Wow. That makes our campaign for Love One Another all the
Yeah.
more great that people contributed so much. Wow.
Well, talking about that, I was approached when we had the building committee here for the school and everything in 1960. And my godfather came, he was on the committee, and he came up and asked me if I would approach the people who had pledged that weren't giving anything. And
How did that go?
never again, I think those people that I had on my list, they just pledged just to get the person away from their door, and they had no intentions whatsoever of pledging. And
Of actually paying.
and then
Yeah.
some of them, the way they responded to me, you know, it was really disheartening. And I said, never again would I volunteer for a job like that.
But the school got built.
Yes.
Yeah. It was a sacrifice to a lot of people to get that school built, right?
And there were a lot of us that are gone now that wanted the church, a new church. And then Father said no, the Archbishop said no, and we still have people my age that still dream of getting our new church.
A lot of us have that dream.
That would be nice.
Were there other things that you've been involved in?
I've been on the Buildings and Grounds committee. It's got to be 10 years or more, and that's been interesting working around here.
Yeah, especially like with the cemetery,
Yeah,
right?
and then all the tiles. I think I put 90% of the tiles in the ceilings throughout the whole building.
Really? What is your, if you don't mind my asking, your background job-wise? I realize you're
I was
retired now, but
I was a journeyman machinist
okay,
and more or less a jack of all trades.
okay.
So you've been at St. Matthew's for all this time. So what were some of the influential people that influenced your journey of faith?
I would have to say Father Redant, Monsignor Redant now. That's why he left here as a Monsignor. And then Father Francis Jordan, he was one of the first associates here. And he had an interest in trying to get the parish more active, get the young people to do stuff and like that. And he succeeded in some ways, but he was always knocking heads with the pastor because the pastor didn't like him taking over responsibilities that the pastor wasn't doing, you know.
So you said it was hard to get young people involved. It was, I know it's that way now, big time, but it's always been that way?
I think in my time, it's just that there weren't that many outside activities to work on. You know, that would be distractions, where today you have your cell phone is the biggest distraction. But I think the kids at that time were just farm kids and stuff like that, and not used to being in organizations and that.
Okay.
And even the schools, we didn't have all the activities that the schools offer, so you didn't have that bit of joining a club.
Okay. So you had children. You had
Yeah, I've got 4 boys.
4 boys. Did they go to school here or
No,
no? Okay.
So what do you remember about like the school in particular? Because it came in like 1962. 62? And I know Catholic education has changed so much. What do you recall like about the nuns or anything?
well, I remember the nuns being here and all that. This was their living quarters back in. And in fact, I tore out 3 of the bathrooms and made them into storage areas for Judy Warren at that time.
Okay.
Or Yeah, the
Origin.
organist.
Origin, yeah.
Or-
Mhm. Because I remember that time too, that people came in and they actually had a outside. I don't think we have that door anymore. Hey? There was a way
That they could get out?
they could get out at the
Yeah,
there,
the
over
south,
by that.
the
Yeah.
south entrance is
Is,
there.
is it still there?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's one of the projects to replace and rebuild in the coming years.
For your building and grounds.
Yeah.
So, are there any pastors or other staff members that you recall having specific personality traits?
Well,
And can you share?
Any stories you have?
Father Barris came here in, I think, 56 or 57, and Elvis Presley was becoming popular. And I think that was my last year as being an altar boy, and we were in a sacristy, and somehow Elvis came up in a conversation, and then he said, Elvis is just a flash in a pan, he'll never last, you know. And we just looked at it because here's this priest and he's telling us about Elvis, and we're getting into his music.
That's funny.
So he didn't have any reaction to the Beatles then, because that was
No.
shortly later.
Not at that time.
Oh man.
What about others of the pastors here? You've lived through a lot of different pastors here.
Well, when Father Bill Stanfield came, I thought he was good. He brought some new life into the parish, because Father Joe Sukup before him, well, his health wasn't the best, and he was getting close to retirement, and he was sort of just skating along or biding his time until he could retire, just like nobody,
Well, do the
anybody
best
else.
that he
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
for his physical
Yeah,
abilities.
I'm not trying
Yeah.
to say anything bad about him, but
And what did Father Bill, like, give an example of something?
I think, well, his homilies were pretty good, and he just was a fresh face in the parish, and he just brought a little more life to it, you know, woke us up.
All right. Any other staff members that you recall that you enjoyed interacting with, or have any stories about?
No, not really.
Sounds-
Okay. How about, we skipped one of these. How has the involvement of the laity in the parish changed over the years? I mean, you've been here a long time.
I think there's more involvement today than there was years ago. It was the same people doing it all the time, and it seemed like once you got the job, it was your job, and nobody's going to take it away from you.
And you think
can have
that's
it.
changed?
I think to a certain extent it's changed. There's more people doing it. May have somebody in there longer overseeing them, or maybe not wanting to give up a position. But I feel that it's improved as far as getting more people doing things, because when I look at the church bulletin and all that, there's all these different names in there of people that are volunteering, or they're in charge of this or that, and or even the parish council. You don't have so many repeats or the same name there over and over.
Okay. Do you recall any significant events in the history of the parish?
That stood out to you, maybe?
No, I don't think so. Outside of building a new school and all that, that would be the major thing.
And what was you kind of alluded, how did the people feel about building the school? Were everybody for it, or what?
I would say the majority of them were for it, and they weren't used to giving donations that were required to build a facility and all that, because we used to have what we call the scandal sheet, the annual parish
Annual
statement
report.
I
with
remember that.
the
Yeah.
people's names and how much they gave, and then you'd say, "Oh, look at this one here. I know how much money they're making. You know, they only gave that." You know, I think all the Catholic parishes were doing that because I had moved out of here and went to St. Frederick's in Cudahy, and that was the same thing. You know, that guy could have gave more money because he's got a better paying job. You know, and then finally the churches did away with this, which was a good thing because that was doing more harm than good as far as, unless it was meant to get the people to donate a little bit more.
Well, that was the idea, but I don't know that it worked.
So, do you have any idea how many families were in the parish when they built the school? I'm just curious. If you don't know, that's
No,
fine.
off the top of my head, no.
Okay. What
But
about?
it had to be getting to a point because the Little Brick Church was too small. And that was one of the reasons we built the school and then converted the gym into a church, because we would have had to add at least 2 more masses, and as it was, we had 3 masses already on a Sunday there.
So, do any parish parishioners during that time stand out to you that helped in any way, or that you can name people that through the years you've seen contribute to St. Matthew's and the parish?
Well, the Weisses, Joe Weiss and John Weiss's father, and then my godfather, John Portage, and that would be on this side of town. I don't remember the one south of here.
Okay.
All right. Do you recall any significant? We talked about that.
Yeah.
Memories from the parish during war times, 9/11, or COVID. Do you have any memories? Anything stand out?
During the Korean War, they had rosary services to pray for the soldiers and that was, I think, on Tuesdays, and that would be the only activity I know. And then during the month of May, we had church services 2:00 every Sunday afternoon during the month of May, and for the Virgin Mary, and then for Advent 2:00 every Sunday for the 4 Sundays in Advent, for the coming of Christ. We had church services.
So your 2:00 for Mary during the month of May, what would that involve?
That was the Rosary.
It was the Rosary? Oh,
Okay. What are your recollections, if any, of 9/11 relative to the parish? Anything?
Not really. I don't think we did anything different outside of everybody being in shock and
more people attending.
yeah.
In COVID, how did that impact you in your church life?
Well, it felt strange not going to Mass, sitting home, and then I was glad when we could come back, and we still aren't back to normal, but slowly we are, and let's hope we get back to normal someday, soon.
What differences have you noted in the parish from pre-Vatican II to post-Vatican II? That's got to be, that's huge change.
Now, being an old man, and what gets me today is, I was taught that when you went to church, you get there early, you settle down, you clear your mind, and you start thinking of why you're at Mass, and remain quiet. Today, you watch the people come in and they don't know what leg to genuflect on, men and women. It's really surprising. And all of a sudden, somebody started out with this bowing, and they're imitating the priests, and I don't think this is right. They're just deviating from what I had learned, or maybe I'm just old-fashioned. I don't know, but the piety isn't there like it used to be years ago. Like there was one mass where Father Stanfield said, "Leave your chewing gum at home," because he could see the people just sitting there chewing gum while he's saying the mass, and it irritated him. Or leaving church before mass is over. There was an incident when I was a real young kid, and Father Redant got upset with one parishioner that would, when he gave the final blessing, this person would get up and go out of the church before the priest even left the altar area. So then what he did, he had two altar boys with lit candles at the back of the church. And when this man got up and walked out, they followed him to his car.
Oh,
And he never did that again.
He didn't.
No, and we have one family that does this at the 4 o'clock mass on Saturdays. The priest gives the final blessing, they stand up for it, and then they get up and they turn around and walk out before him. And to me, that's the biggest insult to a priest. I was taught the mass starts when the priest comes into the room and it ends when he leaves the room. And these people are just, I've seen them out in a gathering space snacking already, you know, with their early departure, but these are little things that get my goat, you know.
I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah. How about the church buildings? How has the campus changed since you first joined? Obviously, this building is new since you first joined.
Yeah, well,
1962.
as far as the buildings go, there's been updates to the classrooms and stuff like that, but and a new gathering space, but we really haven't done anything. The cross that's out in front of the school, that used to be at the cemetery, and there were 2 kneelers there. And for Memorial Day, we would have a Memorial Day service at the cemetery, and the church and the kneelers were utilized. But otherwise,
Were you involved with the renovation of the Little Brick Church or anything?
no. As far as the Little Brick Church goes, I grew up in it. It had the designs on the walls and stuff like that. Maybe they weren't the original ones, but when I go in there today, we had 3 altars, and they were white, and we had St. Joseph on one side, Mary on the other side in the main altar, and then to the right was a confessional, and the podium where the priest said the gospel was would be my left, looking at the altar. And today we've got this big brown altar, and I think that was in a basement of the church or something, and they restored it and put it up there. And I don't know what they did with the other 3 altars, but so that takes away a little bit of my memories of St. Matthew's Little Brick Church.
Do you have any pictures of that time?
That picture is in that Oak Creek book they put out, the history of Oak
okay.
Creek, and there's a picture of it in that book.
Well, if you have any other pictures, we'd sure like to scan them in and
No,
give them back
I
to
don't
you.
have any.
What about the reconfiguring of the church that we're in now? Were you involved in that at all?
Yes, I helped take all the pews up, and then I don't remember or I didn't know who the engineer was that designed the seating arrangement. He figured it out mathematically, and then he just threw lines on the floor, and then a bunch of us put the pews in place and all that. And then as far as the choir stand now and the organist stand, I helped build those.
So your fingerprints are all over this place. Okay. When you think about the future of St. Matthew's, what excites you the most?
I think that it's growing, and for a while there, it was just like the old people that were running it, and nobody was doing anything. But now it's changed, and it seems that there's more and more younger people that are getting involved and taking over for us, and I think that's a good thing there.
Okay. What would you most like to see remain the same here, and what if anything, would you like to see change?
I don't have any comment on that.
More
No,
reverence,
it's-
right?
Really, I'm satisfied as the way it's moving. It's going in a forward direction, and that's only for the good of the church. And to hear Father rave about how we're in such good finances, people are coming forth and starting to commit to their church again, where for a while the church was secondary because a cottage or a boat or a new car were more important than supporting their parish. And I think that's turned around somewhat.
Good point.
Is there anything else we should have asked you, or other comments you'd like to share?
No. I appreciate the questions that were asked, and it really made me think that my family is going to have 100 years in this parish, and I never thought of that. And my wife and I do genealogy, and I never thought of myself, being one of these antiquated persons that's belonging to something.
Yeah, that's really special.
If you don't mind, how old are you?
I'm 85.
85. You're
And a
young.
half.
You're a young 85. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. All right. I think that's
Yeah.
all we've got then. So thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.